Looking at Vladimir Putin's chart, unsurprisingly, it tells us that he is in a cyclical phase of aggression and expansion because on the aggressive, combative, invasive side, his Libra planets, and always most importantly his Sun, but since he has a 4-planet stellium in Libra, the effect gets magnified. These Libra planets are being squared by Mars transiting through Capricorn from late January until the first week of March. And as it turns out, Venus happens to be going through the same sign and the same degrees at the same time, which further adds to his current impulses. Notice that these two would be traveling through his third sign, which is where you get on the move, you travel, you march, which of course he personally isn't doing, but he does it by commanding a large army to do so. Meanwhile, transiting Uranus is opposing his Venus at the time of his order to mobilize the armed forces, and Uranus at his birth happens to be the most dynamic, action-inducing planet due to its square to all of his Libra planets, and is wiring him to go for it, to do what his most independent thinking self inclines him to do, the rules be damned. And yet, at the same time, the transiting Saturn through Aquarius is going to give him a sense that this is the right timing for what he's trying to accomplish, as well as the ability to organize his thinking and his actions towards some desired outcome, even while also connecting him to realism and caution should he need to adjust his plans. But all of this is happening while Jupiter in Pisces is entrine to his Scorpio ascendant and moving toward the exact trine to his rising Venus, ruler of his Libra Sun. Jupiter there is the righteousness and the wish to expand. Now you could conclude that the whole picture might be on the positive side, but then you start to see the problems, particularly as you look further down the road, should the conflict continue for any length of time. First, while Jupiter from Pisces does trine the ascendant and Venus, it simultaneously makes quincunxes to all of his Libra planets in sequence, and this immediately flashes warning signals that the expansion may not be such a good idea. And worse, by the middle of May, Jupiter enters Aries, where it'll hang out until November, and in that sign, opposing his Libra energy, expansion frequently turns out to be a bad idea, a mistake, an overreach, and a bad outcome. Secondly, the Uranus connection to the initiation of this conflict is dynamic, but it's also dangerous, and not just to the Ukrainians, but also to his own fortunes, because planets like this, the ones that at birth are wired to challenge, can later in transit be the ones that really hurt when the dynamic action one takes results in failure or even disaster instead of the hope for success. Third, as we move into the summer months, Neptune is going to station in a square to his Mars, and this is going to bring in confusion, misdirection, and ineffectiveness around matters of aggression, Mars. Although with Putin, just as with Trump, and you could call this Trumpism or you could call it Putinism, but it's really the same school, meaning a constant stream of misinformation, disinformation, or plainly speaking, lying through your teeth. And there's no better conduit for prevarication than Neptune, so expect him to concoct all kinds of lies and fables now, and especially as we move towards summer and the later months of this year. And finally, if we look far enough into the future, should this issue persist into the new year, then he's looking at Saturn in Pisces doing the quincunxes instead of Jupiter, which is even worse. So bottom line, the longer this goes, the worse it's likely to be for the Russian president. But to get even more clarity on how the conflict is likely to turn out, my sense is that we can get really good information by comparing Putin's astrocycles to those of Joe Biden, who in this instance happens to be his most significant counterpart in the conflict. So stay tuned, because that is what I will explain in the next video.